Welcome to the July 9th Select Board meeting. All members are present, so we have a quorum. First order of business is approval of the minutes, May 6th minutes.
Motion to approve?
A second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Motion to approve June 20th minutes?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Motion to approve June 28th minutes.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Motion is carried. Next item of business is consideration of renewing liquor license for the Fisherman's Catch.
And I sent out a copy of the fire inspection. It was completely passed today. And this is simply a renewal.
Okay, so I have a question. When I was printing the paperwork out for this, one of the things for the outside, this is a diagram for extension of privileges area. And it says the following restrictions apply to outdoor extensions of privileges. And there's 3 different things that would have to go with the tent outside. I didn't know what this word was, so I looked it up. There must be a stanchion. Mm-hmm. Yes, and I looked up what that rope thing was. Mm-hmm. Or a fence completely enclosing the area. Signs must be posted stating no alcohol beyond this point, and there must be sufficient employees at the extension area of premises who would be able to control and monitor the area. So, is he doing that? I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay. Because I think that's one of the conditions. That's why I was going to ask Chris. I don't know, Wayne, do you know anything about that?
Well,
You're
we can't
muted,
hear you,
Wayne.
Can't hear you.
Wayne, you're muted.
Sorry about that. The volume's really low. I'm having a hard time hearing your questions.
Okay. So for the extension on their tenant area where they're sitting, as part of the application on here, it just says that there's 3 restrictions that apply to outdoor extension of privileges. Pretty much where they have to have a stanchion, that fencing, or a fence completely enclosing the area. Signs must be posted stating no alcohol beyond this point, and there must be sufficient employees at the extension area of premises who would be able to control and monitor the area. I don't know if that's yours or if that's code.
That would be code for those 3.
That's actually state. That's for the liquor license.
Okay.
Themselves, they deal with that piece.
So this is part of state.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
part of state.
All right.
That's part of the state license.
Thank you. All right, so I don't have any more, and you said that, that the thing passed.
Can I just make a point? I'm
Yeah.
sorry. And now that I'm looking more closely, because you just said that, just did make that point about the page with the diagram.
Yep.
It looks to me like that page with the diagram, including the tent and the outdoor space, is from a previous application. That's not the typical page that goes with a renewal application. So this tent area has been approved in the past.
Yes.
with those restrictions. And then it looks like they just used this page from a previous diagram when that happened for this renewal application.
Showing pretty much everything that's used and where it's at.
Correct. So that page that this diagram is drawn on doesn't usually go with a renewal application.
Okay, so this one actually just goes with the liquor one.
So this page,
Oh,
this page would normally go with a separate first time, when they literally applied the first time for the extension of the tent area. I know a lot of restaurants did that through COVID. So that's a separate application, but it looks like they've just used the old diagram, because it still applies,
Right.
on that page and put it in with this current application for a renewal.
So who then checks then, I guess, on the no alcohol beyond this point and stuff like that? And those 3 restrictions?
My understanding is the state,
like she just said too,
yeah, the
okay.
state really follows through on
So we
that.
can't, yeah,
Yeah.
it's not us, okay. All right, so, since it's not us on that one, if nobody else has anything, I make a motion to accept the renewing of the liquor license for Fisherman's Catch.
Second that.
Discussion? All those in favor? Motion is carried.
Thanks, guys.
Next item is consideration of the August 13 public hearing, special town meeting warrant. Before we do that, wanted to bring up one thing. We're having issues, not issues, but we're having problems with getting videographers here at the 5:30 time. So what I want to discuss is changing the meeting times to 6 o'clock instead of 5:30, because that'll allow the videographers to get here. Anyone have a issue with that?
Nope.
Okay, so the warrant that was in your e-packet says 5:30, but the one that we'll sign will say 6 o'clock instead.
Would it be that out of line to go back to what it used to be at 6:30? Or is this?
Actually, it was 7 before.
No,
Was
it
it
was
seven?
6:30.
It was 6:30.
Yeah, it was
Pretty sure
Oh, we-
6:30.
We used to do 7.
Yeah,
And then we backed
you
it
did.
down.
I mean, it's, the reason that we kind of pulled it back a little was to try and get people home earlier from the meeting. I mean, sometimes what it would mean, especially when, when we're looking at like this next meeting, where we're going to have the public hearing plus that, and things like that, those can tend to go a little bit longer. I mean, it's always something we can discuss and see, but, but
We're moving in the right direction. I like 6.
my stomach starts grumbling though. 'Cause
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Peter?
Peter Levitt, 2 Levitt Road, could it just be possible in consideration down the road that all standing committees and boards in the town have the same start time and maybe the same limitation on how long the meetings go? I do know that each committee and board has different requirements, and certainly the town wants to try and accommodate the volunteers. However, for the sake of the public and consistency, you might want to consider down the road having one consistent time. Thanks.
I don't know if we can do that because other board members are different for their boards. And so what happens is we are 5 that do for us and the planning board
We are
does their
5.
own thing, so yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure what time the planning board starts theirs.
7.
Do you remember? 7? Yeah. And sometimes there was reasoning behind that sometimes dealt with one of the members of the committee who couldn't get there till a certain time, so that kind of drove what time they started things. But as I say, with I know this next meeting we've got there's going to be a lot of things on there, so if we go with that 6 o'clock, that allows the videographer to get here, plus some more time for people to get here. So can we have a motion to approve the warrant for the special town meeting?
Motion to, go ahead. Oh, motion to approve the warrant for the special town meeting for the land use ordinance change for commercial solar and residential districts petition.
Second. Discussion? All those in favor? Motion is carried. Next item on there is the recommendation for the article. So the planning board, as far as I understand, is not going to have a recommendation on it. So select board, we either move to recommend or not recommend.
I guess just a little bit of clarification too. The reason why we did not put this on the agenda before and do a moratorium is because we were advised against it. And I just wanted to put that out there as to It's not that the select board did not want to put it on there, it's just a matter of we were advised against it.
This isn't a moratorium.
No. But, no, we're considering that. Do you know what I mean? That was different from before, is what it is, putting the moratorium on that warrant before. So that's why you guys had to step up and do this step, is what it is. So, all right, so if there's no, so, you want a motion on that?
Yep.
A motion to recommend, that the select board recommends the special town meeting warrant article?
Second?
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? No. Motion is carried. Next item is consideration of building on the Public Works garage. We had a meeting the other day with the Public Works town manager and myself. The decision has been made to withdraw the request for the Public Works garage at this time.
Do you need a motion on that at all?
No.
Okay. All right.
Next item is set a date for a joint meeting with Planning Board and Comprehensive Plan Committee.
Excuse me, that's what I was saying.
Planning Board, Comprehensive Plan Committee, and Select Board. So, the next meeting, what we would do would be to schedule that at one of the Select Board meetings. We would have the regular Select Board meeting and then conclude that, go into a workshop for those discussions. So it would be at one of the regular Select Board meetings. And, whether we do it at the August meeting or the September meeting, I think is going to be a little bit conditioned on how big that August meeting is going to be. We've got the special town meeting at that. And what other things do we have coming up in August?
Right now, all we have in August is consideration of accepting a gift for the Raymond Village Library.
Oh, okay.
That's good then.
So we could schedule it for that night. Would that, do you know if that would work for the comp plan committee? That would be, wait a minute, let me look at the,
August.
that would be
13th.
August 13th.
Peter Levitt, 2 Levitt Road. I'm the co-chair of the Comprehensive Plan Committee. What I would say is a couple of things. First off would be that it may behoove the groups, number one, to allow sufficient time for this workshop. I foresee that it would be probably a fairly lengthy one. I did not envision that every member of the Comprehensive Plan Committee would attend, although it wouldn't surprise me if they did. Likewise, I would not expect every member of the Planning Board to attend. Certainly, code enforcement needs to be represented, in my opinion. So it would be Select Board, Comprehensive Plan, Code Enforcement, and Planning Board members that would be involved in the workshop. So that could be a large group. It could be a smaller group, but I believe it would probably be a fairly extensive discussion because from at least the Comprehensive Plan's perspective, there are a lot of things to update the committees with. And the boards with, and also the fact that these, I would expect that it would be appropriate for a representative from North Star, who are our consultants, be involved. Although they aren't citizens, I believe that they could be allowed to speak in a workshop format. And I have been contacted about other boards or committees also being invited to be in attendance. So my recommendation would be, in order to bring all committees, standing committees and boards on the same page with something as involved as a 5 to 10 year plan for where this town is going, that the Select Board could extend an invitation to all of those standing committees as well. My experience has been, and now I'm not speaking as the co-chair of the comprehensive plan, but just my experience in committee work in general, is that as it's sometimes that someone who works diligently on a committee tends to develop the sense that their committee is the most important one. That's committees and boards alike. My experience has been that if you want a cohesive effort in a municipality, that you try and not encourage that sort of a train of thought. Every committee is important, and therefore every committee deserves to be at least invited to be represented in something as involved as planning for the future of the municipality. So I would ask the board to consider that in extending their invitations. Thank you.
Well, so what you're really saying ultimately is it doesn't make sense to try and tack that on to the Select Board meeting, but to come up with an alternate date and have that as a standalone.
I would think that might be a better approach, to have a workshop in which all of the committees are represented in the town, all of the boards are represented in the town. And I'll give you an example. I was contacted by a member of the Budget Finance Committee who asked about whether they were going to be invited. Now, the simple answer is to say anyone who's a citizen of the town or an interested public member can attend any of these meetings. So whether a formal invitation has to be extended or not, I don't know if that's requisite. But what I would say is that just to pick one issue, if the Budget Finance Committee is talking about developing a capital improvement plan, and the word plan is in there, similar to a comprehensive plan, and if they're talking about decisions of putting aside money for the next 5 years for the town, for improvements in the town, it would seem to me it would make sense that at least their input be asked for. If no one has an interest in doing that, then no one has an interest doing that. However, the beautification committee, in my opinion, is as important as the comprehensive plan. It has something to do with the town, and it says something about us as a town. How we take care of our cemeteries says something about our town. So once again, I just ask that the board would consider that there be adequate time put towards this workshop, if in fact there's going to be discussions about the future of the town. I can tell you that on the timeline right now, the Comprehensive Plan Committee has received the first draft from North Star of the comprehensive plan. So it's not that we couldn't be sharing information with all of those committees and boards as far as where things are going, as far as the comprehensive plan. In December of this year, what will happen is that the comprehensive plan will start being rolled out to the community, and there will be public hearings and discussions on it. That'll probably take place between December of this year and March of next year, with the idea being that during that period of time, the finalized draft of the comprehensive plan will go to the state for approval. So that just gives you a little idea of the timing. I can tell you from my own perspective, there's a wealth of information to share, and we've accumulated a wealth of information survey-wise by the committee, and it's been well formatted in a presentation type of a format for all of the boards and the committees to look at. So it will be very informative and educational for all involved. So that would be my recommendation, that it be a separate workshop, and that all of the standing committees and boards be invited, along with the public. Thanks.
Rolf, I would not have it in this room either, because you want to make sure that it's big enough for everybody and everybody is not crowded in here. So, and if it's a workshop, we definitely want it filmed because it is going to be good input and information, especially since the school is out. We could always use the gym or the cafeteria or something over there. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to turn my back on you on
Yeah,
that.
no, you're fine.
And what you want is enough spaces for everybody to be able to sit and get Kevin signed up for it, but be able to also get it filmed.
Yeah, I mean, we have to get that approved by the school, even though it's,
Whether they're doing
yeah,
floors.
whether they're open or not, because, you know.
The only one issue is that it's going to be in August, so probably want to find some place.
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be, doesn't have to be.
No, I'm
August.
just saying.
Well, I'm just saying, we're trying to get it into a school thing, then it kind of does, because if you roll it to September, then they're going to be in school, and, I mean, I guess you can do it at
Yeah,
night.
because
but-
you do it at night.
Yeah.
Well, except that the last town meeting that Kevin set up, it took 6 hours to set up all
That
the
is- yeah.
equipment.
And I guess
So
that, you know, it
isn't
depends
simple.
on which room you do it in. If you do it in the gym, that takes longer than if you do it in the cafeteria.
We can bring in chairs, we can bring in whatever, but at least it's kind of big enough for everybody, which would be nice.
Let's do this. Sue, can you check and see with the school on potential availability dates on there?
Yes.
Then we can, then from there, we can query the people to see, you know, let's get a couple of dates. And then we'll see, because I can tell you, no matter what we come up with.
Oh, no.
Not everyone's going to be able to make it, so.
And I think it's also
It
too,
it just never works.
it's also a no-brainer too. On
So it's
having
more,
every committee there.
which one can you get more of a critical mass at?
But I think I think it's like I said, a no-brainer on having every committee invited, like he said, but yeah. And then this way, everybody feels like they have a say at the table.
All right, so.
I would just expect that it would be a situation where, at a minimum, we would encourage all of the chairs and co-chairs of the committees to attend, and then basically information can be disseminated to the boards and the committees through the chairs.
Speaking of information, are you thinking that you'll have a rough draft to send out to everyone before the meeting so that it might not be a 3 or 4 hour meeting? I mean, at what stage do you think that
Sure.
draft will be?
I would tell you that with the timeline that I just explained, we just received the first draft from North Star, the Comprehensive Plan Committee, in the last week. It's a rather extensive document. We have no meeting this month, and the idea was that we would get the draft this month to digest it, to be ready to discuss it in August. That being said, I've already scanned through the document, and not to beat a word to death, but it's pretty comprehensive. The only changes I see to it will be changes that come from the public's input and committee input. So I would tell you that North Star has been pretty clear about disseminating a lot of information in draft form, especially when the public has not yet voted on it, for fear that may be in some way trying to bias the community into coming to a conclusion or supporting a certain portion of the final plan. So what I would tell you is that the idea of this workshop is that certainly we're able to share ideas and thoughts about the general aspects and of the draft plan, and also information that we've already collected.
So like an outline would go to us before the meeting?
I would think that there could be an outline. I would say even more, Dennis, that a lot of the survey information and the like has been published on the website.
Okay, I've seen it.
And that also reviewing the meetings that are all well documented through the DVD process and on our website also provide a majority of that information.
Okay.
So it's just a matter of, how much work do you want to expend into looking at it. But I will tell you that we have been cautioned about taking draft material and sharing it with the public before the vote.
Well, yeah, I mean, draft material is, it's dangerous because the draft all of a sudden disappears from the heading, and then people take that as the final document, which is that's dangerous, because you get competing documents out there. So, you know, I don't disagree with what you're saying there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next item, consideration of select board representatives on boards and committees.
And what I've given you is what was decided last year.
I'm fine staying on the beautification if nobody else wants it.
Samuel said on
I want
the
to stay on
veterans.
the vets, yes.
And recycling, not much we're doing on that right now, so I can stay there.
Right, do you need a motion
Yeah.
on that? Motion to keep the names the same on the select board representation on boards and committees.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? No? Motion is carried. Okay, public comment.
Hi, Jennifer Danzig, 38 Pulpit Rock Road. So just a quick question, because Rolf, you opened the meeting talking about 5:30 versus 6. So on August 13th, is the
6.
special town meeting at 5:30 or at
No,
6?
6.
Okay, and from what I understand from the last special town meeting where we voted on the TIF or whatever, we have to be here right at 6 to get our pink cards to be able to vote. Is that correct?
We'll be up
The
here
meeting-
about half an hour early.
Yeah, the meeting will start at 6, so you need to be here before 6 to
Right, okay.
get your pink cards.
Okay, so get here at 5:30 for the 6 o'clock meeting, so
No,
even though it
use a
starts
red
at 6,
card.
yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I just had a question for Peter about the workshop about the comprehensive plan. I know throughout this process, when we've been talking about the ordinances and we've been before the planning board with respect to our issue, we were told it always comes down to the ordinances. It doesn't matter what the comprehensive plan says. But at one point, I thought I remember hearing that like the ordinances that we write in Raymond are supposed to be in alignment and based upon the comprehensive plan. Is that accurate?
That's one of the, it's one of the topics that will be discussed in that meeting, is how that would, how they, the planning board would integrate items and things like that. So-
Okay.
But
I just wanted to make sure that I
the rules,
understood
the final rules are the ordinances.
Right, that's correct. Okay, all right, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I understood. Thank you.
Peter Levitt, 2 Levitt Road, yeah. In response to that question, I think the way I understand it the best is the ordinances that are approved by the town, so it's the town people's ordinances, what generally directs the town. That being said, the description I've read on the state website is that an approved comprehensive plan by the state of Maine serves as the underpinnings in law for those ordinances. So in other words, if just a hypothetical, if a comprehensive plan that's in force says that there should be no further commercial development on the 302 corridor that abuts residential areas, and the town then votes to pass an ordinance that allows that's where you run into trouble with the courts, because the court's going to say there's no consistency here. You're not following the comprehensive plan that was also voted in by the citizens of the town. So that's my understanding of it. No legal force other than the fact that it puts the municipality in a precarious legal situation.
That leads to another question. I can't remember if the 05 or 04 plan was voted through, or this will be voted through by the town people. In other words, it usually gets, my impression was it's submitted, amended a few times to work through the process, and then it goes to the town people for a vote. So that becomes accepted by the town and the state,
To the state first. They
Yeah.
approve it or not.
and then back.
If the state doesn't approve it, they send it back to the town.
All right.
But once the state has said, yes, you meet all the requirements according to the land use.
I'm sorry.
Peter, we can't hear you.
if the state uses the basically land management guidelines or ordinance, the state law, to determine whether or not all of the requirements for state approval of a comprehensive plan by a municipality are met. So it's the town that the state that's going to first say, yes, we give you the blessing. This is an approved state comprehensive plan. And then it's voted in by the town people. So that's generally the process. In 2004, that's what happened. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and I think, Dennis, you were on that plan committee, the town actually sent the first version back to the town, and that's because one of the requirements in the land management main state land management requirement is that all new construction in municipalities include at least 10% in what meets the affordable housing definition. And as I've been schooled, and I've mentioned once or twice before at other committees and the like, I was schooled in that there's, as far as affordable goes, there's big A and there's little a. So when the planning board says, well, you know, it's kind of an oxymoron. Right now in 2024, there is no such thing as affordable housing. Well, that's probably very true for most people. They can't afford a house. That's small a. Big A is affordable housing that is basically a federal definition that is based on income and what low-interest mortgages and other federal and state assistance can be given to get someone into a home. So not to confuse those two, but anyway, that was an example of the 2004. It got sent back and to the town. It was reworked, and in the 2004 comprehensive plan, there was a commitment that 10% of all new housing in the town of Raymond be affordable, big A, according to federal standards.
That's when the ordinance came out for the apartment.
That's when the planning board basically submitted to the board, the SelectBoard, that was put on a warrant. What at that time was called, I guess, in-law apartments,
right,
which is discouraged now. It's not in-law apartments; they're accessory dwelling units.
Accessory dwellings. Right.
Yeah, as of July 1st.
That came down as a state requirement.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So, but what I will tell you is that I have it on good information that that portion of the 2004 comprehensive plan, we never even came close to it, as far as the 10% of all new construction be big A affordable. So, once again, that's a situation where it was in the plan, but we didn't really achieve it. And so, once again, I will absolutely guarantee you that in order for the state to approve this plan, because that requirement in land management by the state has not changed. As a matter of fact, it's even more important now. But what I will tell you is that the object lesson for me in that was this. When I got on this committee, I was bound and determined we're going to get some sort of affordable housing policy, a committee or something in this town to try and at least make an effort to attain that. And over the course of the last 18 or 19 months involved with the plan, you know what? The governor and the Senate basically said, no, we're gonna pass a state law that says accessory dwellings are going to be in every municipality. So you can drag your feet and you can say no, no, no. But when the circumstances are right, what's going to happen is no matter how much you want to make an argument that we're a home rule state and the municipalities have the final say, we don't have the final say. Unless we want to go to Superior Court and spend a lot of money and try and say that we have the final say. So, any other questions on that? No? Thank you.
Other public comment? Don't see anybody raising their hand online. Okay, selectman comment.
Okay, I have some things. Does anybody else have any selectmen comment? Because mine, I'm going to ask you to indulge me here on this one. I think that I'd like to have some things, I guess, clarified and just straightened out, I guess. And I also would like to go over the budget finance meeting that was on June 25th. A comment was made about, can the budget finance recommend items to the warrant? And someone else said that he has always heard that the budget items can be decreased but not increased. He feels it is anti-democratic. Town meeting is the governing body, and that is like telling them that they can only reduce, not increase. Rolf, do you want to answer to that? Well, before you answer that, there's also other comments that were made that they would like to draft up warrant language to give up to the to the select board. Which they can. And the comment was also made, can't find anything that says that the select board will do the warrants. Why does the select board put recommends when they are the ones doing the warrants? In the past 3 years, they have yet to receive anyone in the public works with a CIP plan. I don't know how that got thrown on there with it, but you want to say something on the warrants, Rolf?
The warrants, the warrants are, the authorization to create the warrants comes under Section 30A from this, under state law. The select board is the governing body to create those. The town meeting is the governing body of the town, so they vote on those warrants. But the warrant articles just don't come down from like Mount Sinai on tablets. They have to be created by somebody, and that somebody is the select board. That's rights and responsibilities delegated under Section 30A.
Okay. The other comments that were made too is I believe that the budget finance and the select board would like to get together to work on clarifying the ordinances and to see if any changes need to be made. I think it was this is 23, I can't remember when the last one was. Sean, I think you would know. I think you're the one that said the date of the last changes to the budget finance meeting.
Last changes to the Budget Finance Committee was
Like-
when it lowered it from 9 to 7 members. And that was, Marshall was the chair then, so that would have been 8 years ago.
Okay, so that is something that they were talking back and forth about as far as sending possibly an email over, or I think Karen was going to send over some information. Karen would like to draft up warrant language to give up to the select board. So I don't know if that changes the warrants language. I don't know if it's...
The Budget Committee does not have the authorization to create warrants. The Select Board does.
Right.
And
Well-
it's just that simple. They make a recommendation if there's a financial issue in there, but they do not create the warrant.
Okay, well, and Dennis, you had mentioned, when you're saying right, you're agreeing with Rolf now, because you had mentioned at that meeting, it says you can't find anything that says the select board will do the warrants.
No,
So-
they could do the warrants. What I said is nothing gets on a warrant without their say-so. They don't have to vote on it, they could just put it on there. That's what I said. And yet they vote on it anyway. But truly, it comes from you. We recommended, or I tried to recommend a sprinkler system, for example. I said, can we put a warrant on there so that the townspeople could decide on the sprinkler? And it wasn't possible. It couldn't be added. And then went back and it was amended after that. So there was a lot of changes that went on the second year I was on the Budget and Finance Committee.
I don't remember, all right.
So the point is, when we asked for a couple things to happen, it didn't happen. No warrant gets on without the select board's approval. That's all I said.
Well, and I think the
Doesn't
sprinkler
take a
system
vote.
that you were talking about too had to go with the Public Works building at the same time is what it is. So I don't know, but I'm not going to talk anymore about the Public Works building because that is now off the table. The other thing too is I'm just bringing stuff over. That was
Wait, I
over.
have a question about the last one. Mm-hmm. So are they, on that particular part, since this is here anyway, are you saying, say there is, it's hard because it's pretty hypothetical, I guess, but, or Public Works, whatever. So if you guys, I know it was your idea, but I think how ultimately it would go around would be budget finance would come up with an idea, and if they like it good enough to either vote, I don't know really how they're, it's different than this board, but if you voted on it, agreed on something, say you wanted sprinklers in the thing, and everybody up
We all
there,
did.
and then you came up with a motion and voted on it, whatever, would that then get sent? That's kind of like a recommendation you wanted added to the warrant for the select board to look at and then vote on to see if it was added to that? Is that what you guys are
Yeah,
saying?
we pretty much were unanimous that we wanted to sprinkle the building. We all talked about it, and we expressed it, and yet it couldn't get on there. So at the very end, when the warrant was being written, I said, can we just add a warrant saying that the public will decide whether they want to sprinkle the $6 million building or the $8 million building, whatever way you want to say it, the narrative. And it didn't happen because the select board didn't want it on there. And it won't happen without the select board wanting it on there.
Right.
No matter what we recommend.
Right.
Could be unanimous, and we could be say we wanted to put anything on.
What I'm saying is that, well, if we can come up with maybe a more formal thing, because I didn't get as a select board member during this whole process, I didn't get asked to vote on that particular part to add that to a warrant or something like that. It's more like you guys discussed it and it was all unanimous, but for us, it's easier if there's I would say, a formal vote or something that is getting then passed on to us, and then we can say whether
I
we
like
want it
that.
on or not.
I like that.
Because it's
That's
a little
good
bit
start.
harder, because if
That's a good
not,
start.
I don't know what you guys are talking, who agrees to what and whatnot, and then it gets sent.
Well, Sean, please
'Cause it
wait.
sounds like we are,
Probably go up there.
Oh, sorry. Okay. No, because sorry. All right, is that on that same issue? Because there was a bunch of stuff that was
that
said,
one
so-
sounds like we just fell off into thin air, but I think it's because it needs to be something more formal than, there's a lot of things flying around, and we can't, I don't know which ones we're grabbing at unless that's why it's set up in a more formal format. I don't know the actual process on that, if we can or not, but I don't see why we wouldn't be able to if they had a recommendation of something that needed to be
Right.
changed or reworded or redone. Vote on it, see if it's legal or not anyway, and then it gets to us, and then we would either vote on it and see if we were going to add it to the warrant, because in the end, it's our warrant, so.
Yeah. As I say, they cannot create a warrant.
Right,
That's just right out.
right.
The whole purpose of having the joint meetings that we had was to get inputs so that when the final when the final warrants were written, it had inputs from both boards. There were changes that were made to some of the amounts and things like that. Some of the that came out as an outgrowth of those joint meetings.
Meetings, yep.
So to say that there was nothing, they weren't listened to, is absolutely totally ludicrous and false. And couldn't be any more false unless you stood on your head and spit in a
Could you point them
thing.
out so that the public knows what you're talking about? Which ones you took for our suggestions?
Oh, that's on here. So I want to bring that up because you did mention at your meeting. No, you brought it up at a meeting, and you brought it up in a newspaper article. You also brought it up at a meeting that we did not listen to anything that you had said as far as recommendations go. And the only recommendations that you guys made was regarding the public garage. And one of the things about the public garage is we told you that this was being done, and it was definitely not on the timing aspect of it. But as far as everything else, one of the things that you guys were doing, as far as any other warrant article, you didn't have any changes. In fact, you guys were going through your meeting and looking for changes and cuts, so where you could possibly think that we might make a cut on something. And I remember watching the meeting, and we didn't make any changes. So the only changes that you guys say that we did not listen to was regarding the garage. That is it. So to say that we did not listen to any of your recommendations is also false.
Well, I just asked for a couple suggestions you took.
We took all the other warrants.
Yeah, there was changes in amounts, there was changes, if you go back and review the tapes, you'll see that there were.
I have.
I'm gonna give you that.
We discussed monetary items, and there were some things we raised, some things we lowered. We moved some things around. Some of the, if you look at the original budget package versus the final budget package, there were a lot of changes in things in there, and those were an outgrowth of those joint meetings. So just, as I say, to say that they weren't listened to, somebody either had their fingers in their ears or I don't know what, but, it's absolutely false.
I just asked for a couple of details.
That's,
know?
yeah, I don't have those
Well,
off the top of
I
my
guess I
head
would ask-
because
I would ask
I'd
you
have to
that.
go back
What
and-
didn't
I'd have-
we listen
I have to
to?
go back and
That's what
look through the
I'll give you an
books and
example.
see what we,
Okay.
when we changed amounts.
When the warrants came back, and both bonds for the pickleball courts and Tasseltop were combined with public safety, public works building, we asked to separate them. And then we were told that you can't separate them because they've already been written up. That's 2
That was
years
2
ago.
years ago.
Yeah,
That
I'm
was
just giving you an
that was
example.
2 years ago.
I'm going to give you an example. It went back, and then, again, there was not even a vote for that particular 3.5, but when it came back out, it was changed to $150,000. The select board did that, from the 3.5 million.
But that's what we did was a final select board.
Again, we didn't
you
have
put-
input except for the final vote. So I'm giving you an example of where we wanted to split it out and never got split out, and it was just a simple request. So if you need a formal vote each time, at least that's a start. I think that's a good way to
If you
do
had
it.
split it out, you would have had 2 bonds.
You can combine them after the vote.
No, you cannot unless you have the wording in there to allow you to combine.
Right.
So, and just because we don't listen to it, we are listening to it. Just because we don't take it, doesn't mean we're not listening.
I just gave you an example.
Well, no, I'm just saying, so, all right, and I guess I'd like to go on with all this too. Go ahead.
Are you going on that one?
Well, I'm staying on all the selectmen comment. If you got something you want to put in as public.
Oh, wait.
This is, to me, important. It really is. Because when I'm sitting and watching this stuff at home and this stuff is not accurate, I do think that this is an idea that Dennis brought up. He says a policy or ordinance needs to be made that anything over $1 million needs to be publicly discussed. Do you remember talking at that? Yep. Says our meeting, well, you do say our meetings are not transparent. And you also said special town meetings early in the morning about money where people can't be there. We don't have those about money early in the morning.
Money?
Special town meetings. You mentioned on here, yeah, you mentioned at that meeting on June 25th that we have special town meetings early in the morning about money where people can't be there.
Well, it's of the annual warrants, the bond, the band, broadband that we were doing for Kevin and the town was at 8:30, 9:30 in the morning, wasn't it? There was one thing early in the morning that we did a quick meeting.
You have to separate two separate items there. We didn't have a special town meeting. We had an emergency meeting to approve the wording so it could go to a special town meeting. A special town meeting was held in the evening. So there's an action that we had to take in order to put out the notice so that you could have the special town meeting. That was done in an emergency session. That was, there was no money discussed there or anything like that. That was just strictly to be able to get the warrant out there so that then it could come into a special town meeting, which was held at night. So there was no money discussed there. We've never had a special town meeting in the morning. The only time we'll have, if we have to have an emergency meeting for one thing or another to get something so that it then can come to.
So that morning it had to be done instead at night because of timetable, I guess?
Yeah, because it was a formality to get the warrant
It was already supposed to
issued.
be in the paper.
It was
Wasn't that the one
to
that
get the
was supposed to be in
warrant
the paper?
issued to be able to call for that town meeting. So that was the only purpose of that meeting, was to approve that warrant, which then called the special town meeting.
And it was a money issue, though, really?
No,
So it's a statement?
the only thing that was
Okay,
discussed
okay.
there was to
All right.
approve the warrant itself. The warrant says, okay, now you're going to call the people to a town meeting. Two separate things. You're confusing that with warrant articles that go in for the budget. We just approved a warrant for the solar thing town meeting, same thing. But you get into notice times and things like that, and in order to meet some of those, we had to, in cases, do that in order to get the notice out there in time so you could have the special town meeting on the schedule that you wanted it.
All right, so that one had to be done 12 hours earlier, so at 8:30 instead of 6:30 or 5:30 at night, there was a reason for that? I'm just asking. It seemed like a weird time for something that was dealing with something that's going to be on the budget.
No, that wasn't something that was dealing with something on the budget. It was dealing with
A special
with
town
calling a
meeting.
special
Yeah.
town meeting.
To deal with something
So
that's
all
on
it
the
was
budget.
doing was approving the warrant that called the special town meeting. There was no recommendation on there. All it said was, we're going to have a special town meeting. That's all it was. So there was no money, there was no money issues or anything, money that was approved or disapproved or anything like that. All it was saying, yes, we selectmen approve calling this special town meeting. That's all it was. So if people are trying to make it out into something that it's not, well then that's their misunderstanding.
Well, it's also the public misunderstanding because that all went public.
Yeah.
It did, and that's the reason why I think it's important that we bring these out, is what it is. It's more of an educational type thing too. So we get,
Can you just explain again what I asked? It couldn't have been done at 6:30 that night, it had to be done at 8:30 that morning?
It was a matter of, in order to get to press and things like that, it had to be done at a certain time. And it met the schedules of the select board to be able to do that as an emergency meeting to get that approved.
you have to have it in by a certain time.
Yeah, it was, that
1:30.
particular step is an administrative step in the process. It isn't setting what anything is or making any decisions other than to approve the warrant so it can be posted online, it can be posted in the paper, it's ready to meet the deadlines. With emergency meetings, we try and do it as early as we possibly can so that it gives the public more time to know it's out there and to know that it's coming up and to advertise it. It's for transparency that we do it as quickly as we can,
The
but
pa-
that administrative step.
And the paper that comes up Friday or the Poem Press Herald? Which one, when you talk about the
It
public?
goes in the Wyndham
Eagles,
Eagle.
So,
where
yeah,
we
that's
put all-
Friday.
And it also gets posted on our website. It goes up on our electronic sign. It goes
For
on
my
our
education,
Facebook
though, I'm
page.
asking for my education, so I know, is it the New England, is it the Wyndham paper that we're trying to get it in time on that Tuesday
We're
morning?
trying to get it as early to the public as we can, which is
Okay.
putting it on our stuff, is the earliest.
But our official
It's
paper
part of
that we put all our
transparency.
legal things is the Wyndham
Yeah,
Eagle.
Right, and so that's what you had to have, the paper had to have that ad in it for Friday. Okay.
On another issue, I know the garage is now off the table, but this needs to be clarified also. Rolf did not say we were going to find another way to do this garage. Rolf is a very ABC type person when something, he says, read what it says, don't read into it, don't add anything, because it changes the meaning to it. So with that being said, there was conversation at your meeting the other night that just talks about the select board kind of going around and doing it a different way to get the garage done. One of the things Dennis did say is that the Budget Finance has the right to put together a committee to put up the garage. Frank said put it on the next meeting as far as the Budget Finance to put together a committee. So I don't know where this board stands with that. As far as Budget Finance doing a committee to put the garage together?
Budget committee does not have the authority to do anything other than a subcommittee of itself for an action. They cannot create a committee that has town backing. The only ones that can create and appoint a committee is the select board.
Okay, so
They could,
Just
if they
clarify that, so-
wanted to have a subcommittee to study some portion of
Right.
budget, they could do that, but they cannot create a committee out of whole cloth to do something entirely different, because that's not in their charter.
okay, and
Because, and
You
the
wrote the
reason
charter.
being is, when you appoint when a committee gets appointed, there are there's legal implications that flow back, and if it's not appointed by the select board, then there's no protection.
So how do you interpret that ordinance then, when it says that they will develop and present to the town meeting a CIP plan, 5-year plan that they will research, investigate, and
Since they will
interview?
develop and present, that presenting is
And
that goes into
investigate.
the budget. So that comes to the it comes back to the select board.
Well, I know it won't go onto a warrant until you guys approve it, I understand that, but it says research, investigate, and to...
You do that. You're doing the research from the standpoint of looking at what are the what's in there. 'Cause I can
Any
tell you, the
bond?
original CIP, I helped develop that way back when that first went in. So I know, and you were looking at you're looking at all the assets, you were looking at all that, you're looking at retirement schedules on things like that, and then, you're
Grants
throwing
and
things on there. But a CIP is a planning document. It's not a it's not a finalized, it's not a purchasing plan.
No, no, I know
It is,
that.
you know, because it's malleable. You know, you can, you know, things move in, things move out, you know, all of a sudden you don't need this, you know, something that you thought you were gonna need, you don't need because something's changed. You know, I mean, you take, you know, if you take the, to a further extent, you know, suppose the state ever got into, you know, consolidating on public safety, which they keep talking about ad infinitum, but never getting anywhere. You know, then all of a sudden you take, you know, things that you needed, you thought you were going to need in, you know, in the town, now you may not. It's going to be covered someplace, some other way. So it comes, you know, so it moves out of the plan and something else comes in. But I mean, you know, and things happen, you know, something breaks, so you have to, you know, you move it from here to there because you need it. But I mean, the plan looks at it and says, okay, you've got something that has a 10-year useful life. So your plan says, okay, at year 8, you're still going to start doing something for that. But something can happen and it can slide back. But that, you know, that is a committee that, you know, that is something that the budget committee itself does as far as pulling that together. And you're dealing with, you're taking the old CIPs and you're updating those.
Yeah, I think that's all we're saying. I think that really, if they decided to put a building committee with using resources that are available, be it a code officer.
But they don't have the authority to create that type of a committee.
But they can interview the person. They can ask them questions about the process. We're not talking about going out and hiring people. It says research, interview, and interview. That's what the law says.
But if you're not doing it and you haven't been directed by the select board to do it,
The town voted in that
The
ordinance.
towns, you know,
That's-
yeah, you can, you know, I mean, you can, if you're investigating a budget item, you can ask questions of people like that, but now you're creating a new committee, and that is not allowed. That's entirely different.
I'm glad we're going to have that meeting with a lawyer, because I really believe when I read that ordinance, and it seemed like there was a separation on at least the capital improvement plan, where they would have the authority to interview the people, the department heads. Department heads.
Absolutely, the department head.
And Chris is a department head, so you could talk to him about possibilities. You could talk to Nathan about
Yes.
the size of the
Yeah.
bays.
Right.
You could have.
my apologies, I
bays
thought
is a
you were
building,
talking about
that's, you know.
outside people coming in to do a committee. That's
No,
what it
you'd have to
sounded
get
like.
approval from the select board or the town
Yeah,
manager.
no, so my apologies on that one. So, yeah, so that's what I thought, yeah, department, yeah. Right, and I don't know how you want to do this one, because I know this is mentioned a couple of times. Sean had mentioned at the meeting that getting budget finance input as far as the BUTO money that comes back in, because they have mentioned a couple of times as far as what they would want to do, so maybe the budget finance puts together, I guess, some ideas and sends it over as to what the money could be used for and that type of thing. So I just wanted to make sure that that was just relayed again, that you guys had talked about that again. Another thing that was said, and this is just so not true, before any meeting, before any vote that we have always had a public hearing, a public meeting to ask questions, always. And Karen had said that she's not familiar with the town meetings. Well, to the budget finance, to us, to all the people out there in the land of this TV, if you guys, it's the official document, the videos. So if you go on to raymondmaine.org and you go under Raymond IPTV, and you can pull up every meeting, every agenda back to 2001. And it shows special town meetings that were on there. And it shows what the agendas were. It shows what the minutes were, all of that. So, and one of the comments was made by the ex-town manager that just said that he doesn't remember having a lot of them. And I think it was either Peter or Dennis that both said, yeah, there has been some, there's been several of them. So, and I think, and so to say that we have not is definitely not it. And just another, I guess, heads up as far as when people are putting things out there, information that's out there that's not accurate. One of the comments was as far as that there was a gag order put on all the employees in the town. That did not happen. The ex-town manager was out on FMLA, and a letter went out that said, do not contact him with any kind of business because it is against the law.
And don't accept a call from him?
Exactly.
And
Because if it's business, we
Right.
can't talk to him about it.
don't call him for anything?
Exactly.
Well, the town employees that I was talking to at the time felt like it was a gag order. They couldn't even check in on the guy.
Then maybe they should have talked to the town manager instead of talking to you about it. And
It
instead of
didn't come
putting
to
a
the town
gag.
manager, it came from Joe Bruno. Came directly from Joe
No.
Bruno. I read it.
No.
I got a copy of it.
You told Joe Bruno, when you guys were standing outside,
did.
that we put a gag order on it, and he had to explain to you what FMLA was.
I agree.
And what happens is you cannot call an employee because whatever the reason, if it's pregnancy, it's anxiety, it's mental, it's broken leg, whatever, they're out on a leave. So to give them a call from us and then put them under stress or whatever to work, we can be sued. So to not say anything, and it was Joe's job as the chair, working with the interim town manager, because Dawn was still the town manager at the time, and we hadn't even put her in yet. So it was not a gag order, and Joe did not ever tell you it was a gag order.
No, I told him exactly what he probably told you half of it. I said I was in there on a regular basis. I was working with a couple of the people on different things, and everyone there felt like it was a gag order, that they couldn't even check in to see how Don was doing. And when you say and it wasn't the first time. I mean, I'll bring it in and read it next meeting, and let the people decide. It's a straightforward.
It's not the people's business.
Well,
it's a confidential
It's
issue.
a confidential document. It's
So-
an FMLA protected
Yes.
item. So, so to say that you're going to bring it in an open thing, it means you're not understanding the law either, and you're subjecting yourself to litigation,
Well-
which I don't think you want to do.
No, I don't.
Okay.
But I'm trying to explain why it was taken that way.
It
That's all
doesn't-
I was saying.
That's why they would go and talk to the interim town manager, where say what what is that? Instead, I mean, that goes beyond
It does.
ludicrous.
I didn't bring it up. Teresa did.
I did, because this is stuff that was put out in the public.
And I was trying
And
to
this is
explain to
stuff-
you.
I know, but when you're putting stuff out that's not accurate, that's not okay. It really is not. You didn't even realize the whole FMLA thing. And one more thing I do want to put out, and then I'm going to be done. Peter, I sent you a letter, and you've told a couple committees this. And this is, I guess, my day to call everybody out. I'm just there. I was really nice when I sent you that text message, and your comments are really rude. And I'm going to say it. I wrote, "Good morning, Peter. Happy Father's Day," and this was on June 15th. You handed out a comp plan report to the Budget Finance Committee. Could the Select Board get a copy of that report too? It sounds like there's a lot of good information in it that would be important to read. You came to, and I said, thank you, Teresa Sadak. You came to our meeting and you said to us, you didn't get it because you didn't ask for it. We're the ones that had put the comp committee together. But to come here and say we didn't ask for it, there is a question mark on here, and I was very nice. And then you went to the Budget Finance meeting on June 25th and said, oh, I think they're a little jealous that Budget Finance got a copy and you didn't. So anybody out in TV land, it is on the internet as far as under the departments. But again, I think you were very rude in that. And I'm just calling people out because I was nice and I asked for a copy because it looked like it was very informative. So I am done.
Okay.
Get your allowance.
Sean McKelvey, we're Maine, Budget Finance and Comprehensive Plan. I'm going to keep this short because this is getting a little much. Our committees need to get together. Budget Finance and this committee need to get together, I think, and we need to discuss some things. That's my recommendation, to sit here every night after Budget Finance Committee or Comprehensive or Select Board and have a 30-minute conversation about each other is it's getting a little old, guys. I would like to suggest as not on behalf of Budget Finance Committee, but as a citizen, these two committees need to get together and we need to kind of work through a couple of things. I do feel like year one for me last year was a rubber stamp on Budget Finance Committee. Year two, definitely started getting some more input. But even year two, a lot of my suggestions, when I would bring up a couple of suggestions, it was shot down by a particular member and the comments were always made, we've already discussed this and we've decided that this is how we're going to handle this. I think a lot of my frustration on Budget Finance Committee comes from those comments where this has already been decided. So when we're talking about doing things to help the warrants out, I understand there are some things that we just, we can't do, but we can definitely make suggestions. But unfortunately, by the time that the warrants are out, we're voting on them. And we're not allowed to make any recommendation. We're only about to, from June 20th, I remember, Rolf, you said this, petitions cannot be changed. They cannot be recommended or not recommended. So I understand that we're not changing the language, but if we had some input on some of these things ahead of time, I think that would help out, our overall thoughts on the warrants. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna really say. Just as far as one comment I do want to say, Rolf, you did say, your words were that specifically about it, the garage getting, the garage was that we didn't say no to doing it, we said no to funding it. We're gonna find, and I don't remember exactly where we were, so I'm not gonna re-quote you. That was the words. The intention was different, I feel. The words were the words, but I think the intention wasn't that, hey, we're gonna find a different way to do this. Hearing that from you, I think was important, but I think that the words were, we're gonna do it this way. Yeah. But the intention, I think that
the words were, if it was to be done, we would have to fund it some other way because the bonding was turned down.
Yeah.
That was. I think if you check the tapes, you'll find that's exactly what I said. I didn't say we were going to go around and do it some other way. I said if somehow we were to do that, and the bonding was not issued, it would have to be funded in some other manner. And that's because once you said no to the bond, you said you're not going to bond it. So if for some reason it went forward, then you had to fund it by some other mechanism.
Fair. I think that's what I'm saying is that the way you said it, specifically the words, I'm not going to beat you up over the words. I'm just letting you know that I'm saying I understand what your intention is now, but the way the words were made it sound a certain way. Mm-hmm. As far as getting this garage built, I think we need a subcommittee. I think that when you guys said that, we're taking the building off the table right now, I didn't jump for joy over that. That's not what I want. I don't want to see the building not take place.
Oh, I didn't see you jump for joy. Oh, sorry.
No,
okay.
You didn't say that at all. I'm saying when you said that, I didn't feel good about it. I do want to see a building for Public Works, but I think that the process, we need to start over in the process. If there's a subcommittee that needs to take place, put me on it. But I think that I want to see the building. I want to see it bonded. But I need to tell the public what it's going to cost. I need to be able to tell the public the reasons why we're building it to that size. And if it's down on Plains Road as opposed to here, I need to tell them exactly why we can't outfit that building. I need to be able to tell the public all these things. And I do think that if we are being transparent, I think a lot of things that we're talking about being transparent, we need to be transparent with the town. We owe it to the town, and that's why I'm on the Budget Finance Committee. I really think that you put a committee together, we show the town, I think they'll bond it. Whatever that amount might be, we have to really show them that these are the reasons why we need this garage. I'm all for the garage. I think I've said that multiple times. I was not in favor of how this process went over the last 2 years, though. So, any questions for me?
No.
Peter?
Can I add one more thing in before Peter, because Peter did bring something up. I will give him the credit on this one. He did stand up there and he did correct the budget finance when he said, we did not ask the public whether they wanted that building or not. And so the question is, do we ask them first? Whatever it is, but it's off the table on that one. And I'll wait till Peter gets done to add one more thing.
Let's get together, for real.
I'm good with that one. I like that part of it, for sure. I think the other problem with the budget finance and the select board, the way it was, I wasn't here. I started this time that year, so I didn't go through the whole process. You've been in that part of it longer than I've been on the select board, but I didn't see you guys or that whole process start until later on. I think it's better this year, Harold, you guys are starting it earlier so that there is more input, I would say, I guess, on when we go to get in for the warrants. I think not having all that other information in some of the meetings, I don't know how many you need or whatever, but I think just being a little bit more organized and informative going into that would help last year's. And I see this year it's working
Yeah, this
well
year,
that way, so.
we've decided to meet monthly,
Yeah.
where I think for the past, they're
What was
just
the first meeting last year? Do you remember what you guys had?
2023?
Yeah,
The first meeting?
February 2nd or 3rd.
Right, of 24?
Well, they all started in February.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. And then it's rushed because it's February and then
Yeah,
you're
we're
putting
looking
them
at,
on.
we're looking at all this information and to say, not only are you looking
Yeah.
at some old information, but now you're looking at what we have to vote on for this
Right.
budget.
Trying to get information, give us some suggestions, and then get it written in time to get it on for June.
Yeah.
That's a very small time frame.
On
so.
top of that, because I'm a comprehensive plan, I'm thinking 10 years
Right.
forward. So certain projects, I'm like, hey, I know that this is something that we're going to be looking to do in the future, but to do that all in a couple of months during tax season,
Yeah.
during all this
Yeah,
other
exactly.
stuff, it's, it's not enough time.
And
So
then it
that's-
gets convoluted because we look like we're not taking your suggestions, but your suggestions are kind of half suggestions because they're so rushed. And so it's just, I think it's better this.
Yeah, so the first time I would
guys
hear
get more
something, I would say, going back to the tax, the violation that we had. Yeah, we'll definitely, I'll get them with my committee and try to get a couple suggestions that we've been thinking about, but
Oh, Buto.
Meeting would
when, what
heal that.
was that?
He said a meeting like would heal that, like
Oh.
in between us, yeah.
But going back to that, when I had suggested something to a certain select member, it just got shut down. It's like, this is how we're going to use it. And it's like, well, I think that, not that, I think that we can be more creative in this way. And it was just, nah, that's it. We're going to do, we're going to do it this way. So, yeah, I think that budget finance it's going to look different every year. And it's not because I'm against you guys or anything like that. Just when I signed up for that committee, the first year I was on it, I went home to my wife and I was like, I'm kind of worthless. what was I there for,
That's right.
Where this year I'm like, no, I've got strong opinions on this thing over here. And now, going to year 3, or not even this year still, we have more members on. And I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think that, we've been down a couple members, budget finance, over the last couple of years. And I think that the town is kind of listening now. Now you have more people on budget finance, and I think we're still down by one. I forget if we're down by one.
I think you're at full.
So being full, where in the past we haven't been
You had
full.
3 openings and the three people went on, so
Yeah.
you're at full. You're at
Okay.
full space.
So we're full now, but if you look over the last couple of years, we've never been full. It looked like it's always been the struggle to fill those positions. So I think that, like I said, I'm not coming after you guys. It's not my intention. I've got no win in that. I think that this committee has done, amazing work to keep this town really financially well. AAA bonding, we keep hearing that term. Got nothing against that at all. But budget finance is supposed to be a check to make sure that, like Dennis was saying, I think that when stuff goes on the warrants, you guys already made that decision. So of course it's not going to go on there. That's why budget finance wants to have that say too. And I know that we have the ability to have that say, but I think in the past, nobody has said anything about that. Now that we're kind of digging up and realizing hey, what is my actual job on this committee? As we're kind of digging those things up and finding it, then we're realizing, hey, budget finance has not been doing this job over the last couple of years.
No, quite a few years. Yeah, way back.
So the town owes, it's owed to the town to have a strong committee to make sure that it's a balance. I'm not trying to attack you guys, but I do think that we should get together because I understand that there are certain members on Budget Finance Committee that are, I don't want to say the old guard, but but you understand what I'm saying. So that's my thoughts. So I'm not going to beat you guys up over it. Just want to let you know.
Well, one of the things of bringing this stuff forward is to make sure that you guys hear that whether it's correct or not. You know what I mean? As far as the warrants and stuff like that. And one of the other things that you guys were talking about at your meeting that I wanted to make sure was covered too was you guys were talking about getting the word out more to people. And it is hard. That's one of the biggest things in town is getting word out to people that different things are going on or whatever. And Frank had made a suggestion, and Rolf came up with a perfect explanation as to, it's not a matter of not doing it, it's a matter of why. He just said, have a public meeting in the afternoon for a couple of hours, and then the people at that meeting can vote that right after that meeting, and then open the polls the whole next day for the people who did not make the meeting can vote all the next day.
And you can't do that because there's a potential that something could be changed, which is then not carried through onto what people are voting on and the other. So if if you're going referendum, it can only be done that way, because if someone were to vote absentee, which a number of people did,
Yeah.
if something changes, they didn't vote on the same thing.
So that's why so this is to stop, I guess, you guys from an idea with the correct information, because I'm thinking, all right, that's a possibility. And when he said to me on it, yeah, no, it can change the next day, as far as like, say, they go in on that meeting and they vote to not do the garage, that whole thing has to come off the next day for the people that are doing the secret ballots, is what it is. But this way, where you guys are getting the information back, as to saying, nope, that information can't go through because of A, B, or C.
Yeah, it sounds like my committee has a lot of desires to do things, but a guy like Rolf who's got that knowledge, we don't all have that knowledge. We've got a good collective
Bounce it
mix,
off him.
but pass that knowledge to us, and we may make mistakes and say like, hey, we want to do this, and it could be totally something we can't do. And that's when you guys come in and say, okay, listen, you can't do it this way because of this. Like I remember Rolf just like, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes ago was like, can't do that subsection 23 or something like that. It's like, where did you get that? Like,
This is why when I say make a line in the cement, and he goes, no, you can't. So my B brain is going bzzz all the time. It drives him nuts because he is that.
yeah, we're kind of like the hare that wants to get to the
Yes.
the next step, and Rolf's
Yes.
like, no, slow down. But always I've been saying for a year, or for the last couple of years, is pass that knowledge on. And yeah, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to say stuff that maybe isn't true. You correct us. Okay, that can't be done that way. But I think our two committees are going to work better together than we are going to work apart. And I would like to see that.
Me too.
And I believe we can do some sort of special town meeting way in advance if we started the process earlier. I mean, it was all crammed up. Even when we had the emergency meeting, we were told, Karen was told that we couldn't get our vote changed because of the ballots had already gone to print. That's how close we were on everything. So if we move up the schedule so that there's input along the way,
Can you move up the schedule?
no, that's what happened anyway.
Peter?
You count.
Did you had something?
Yeah, right.
We can make it work.
Peter Levitt, 2 Levitt Road. I heard the chair described as an ABC guy. I think I would interpret that as saying he's process-oriented. I can relate to that because I find myself being process-oriented. I would tell you that anyone who knows me knows that I'm not someone who's out seeking a lot of friends. I'm not. That's just who I am. What I am interested in is fairness in the process. I can't tell someone that they weren't insulted. If they feel insulted, then I will have to say, okay, you were insulted, because I can't tell you what your feelings are. What I will say is the reason, as far as process goes, that I'm even talking now, I'd ask the chair, is that this is Selectman's comment. And the reason I'm up here talking is because I believe my name was mentioned.
It was.
And so if my name is mentioned, I believe I have the podium. So that's kind of process.
I knew how that had to follow. That's what we did.
But I would say that the last 20 minutes of this meeting is kind of reflective of what, without getting too much involved in sports analogies, what a coach told me a long time ago, which is when you have a team and there are new members that join the team, that's not really true. That's not really true. When there are new members, it's a new team.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would ask you to think in those terms. The last 15, 20 minutes of the meeting, in my opinion, is not helpful. And so bringing up issues from 1 or 2 years ago, or bickering and sniping back and forth and suggesting that someone is not telling the truth or whatever, that may serve a purpose in clarifying something. I'm not sure. I will tell you from personal experience, in this community, I saw a board that was what I considered to be rather dysfunctional. And it was very close to my heart because I had a relative that was involved in that board. And what I saw is that there was a slow degrading of the opinion of the community in the town. And that was not any one individual's fault. That was the fault of the team. And so what I would encourage you to do is to stop all of this sniping and bringing back issues in the past and look more towards the future and how there can be cooperation, and kind of echoing Sean's comment. And I believe I saw a couple of select board members nodding as well, that, there has to be a cohesiveness, a working together. One of the things I regret on the comprehensive plan is that North Star, our consultants, basically handed us a list that I was relatively insistent on of all the department heads in the town. Because in the past, the comprehensive plans have been that the consultant did the interview with the department heads. And I was adamant that no. I think for our committee to function correctly and get the correct information, we'll go out and the committee will interview the department heads, and that's what we did. What I regret now is that included in those department heads was not the selectmen, and that sitting down with the selectmen, the comprehensive plan, and asking them certain questions and getting their opinions on things would have been helpful for us. But for whatever reason, the consultants didn't suggest that, and it didn't happen. The attempt of us having the workshop is to accomplish that. And so that's what we're trying to do. And if in my response to a select board member on a Father's Day about an email, I guess what I did is I was expressing my frustration with the fact that since January of this year, I had been asking the town manager, I had been asking the chair of the select board that we have that sit-down meeting. And I was put off, and I was put off, and I was put off. And so if anyone took offense to my frustration, I apologize. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
All right.
I have a couple questions, just education, but it's not public comment.
Oh, it's open now.
Well, if it's not public comment, I mean, are there questions that you can?
Well, there are questions about things that you guys were talking about, so for my own education purposes as a citizen, I have some follow-up questions for you as a board.
All right.
Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay, that's why I'm asking. I didn't want to be disrespectful. Okay, Jennifer Danzig, 38 Pulpit Rock Road. So just encompassing, I'll just rattle them off. So when you guys do a public notice, it goes in the Wyndham Eagle and it goes on the website, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, just for the record, like I haven't gotten a Wyndham Eagle in like the last 3 weeks. So sometimes the Wyndham Eagle isn't always, but if I know to go to the website to look for things, that's helpful for me. Thank you. And then Teresa, you said that the select board always has public hearings. Is that so? Every single meeting will have a public hearing. Is that correct?
No, we have a hearing before the warrants.
Okay.
Or we have a special.
Well, I think what she was talking about there, because the voting was done a referendum, there was a public hearing prior to that, which was minimum. It has to be minimum of 10 days. 10 days prior to that. At that meeting, I think there was 5 people.
Yep.
I think I zoomed into that. Was that
And
when
it-
you were going through all those
Yes,
warrants and
and then we
whatever?
had the garage people here, the engineers here.
Yeah,
too.
okay. I think I zoomed into that meeting. So I guess my question is, so when you have a monthly select board meeting, like you are now, right? There is always public comment at every meeting, except when you're in executive
Yes.
session,
Right.
right?
Yes.
There's always public comment. Okay, so this probably isn't then an appropriate or fair question in the sense that the planning board is not the same.
No.
So based upon my experience with my issue with the planning board, they, like, every one of their meetings does not have a public comment.
I think budget finance does, but I don't
Okay.
know what plan.
And there-
Planning board is different. Planning board's different.
Okay.
If they have public comment at allowed at certain times when something's under review, but they don't have a general public comment time.
Okay. So, so I just wanted to sort of clarify that. So I appreciate you, Select Board, for giving the public the right to comment, because it was a little confusing with the planning board that we could comment after the fact, but not before things were happening, which is why the solar thing sort of went how it did. And then let me ask you, because you guys are talking about warrants, so having gone through this process with the planning board, I think I understand how they create warrants, right? So like, because we were part of a process.
They don't
Yeah, they
create
don't create
warrants.
warrants.
Or ordinances, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. They create the ordinances that then that you guys, that are submitted to you
Yes.
for the purpose of putting them on a warrant, and then the town gets to vote on it.
Yes.
Correct.
So the warrant becomes the law if the town votes on it, but the ordinances are written by the planning
Ordinance
board.
becomes the law.
Right, the ordinance becomes the law, but they're written by the planning board.
Correct.
So, and then I guess what is the public involvement in that?
They have public hearing, when they finalize or get an ordinance to its final stage, they have a public hearing. That public hearing, the public can come in and comment on that ordinance. What happens is so they create the ordinance, they get it through all their reviews, their legal reviews, then they'll have a public hearing on it. The public can comment on it if if they want to take and make any adjustments to that after that. They can do that. Whatever goes to the town meeting cannot be amended. An ordinance cannot be amended at town meeting. It can only be voted either up or down.
Okay, so once they have and so again, this is planning board. Is it different for select board and budget finance? Because it sounds like you guys all sort of have various mechanisms to, and I'm using the wrong terminology, so Rolf, correct me because you're the wizard. But so if, like, everybody has an ability to do an ordinance, I'm going to use the word ordinance for the sake of argument. So if planning board does an ordinance and budget finance has their ordinance and other people have these ways of getting their ideas to you to review, right, to create a warrant that then goes to the town to vote.
Right.
Like, are all of those avenues the same in terms of, like,
The internal operations of each of the committees is slightly different. Ultimately, the ultimate is the town meeting is the government. So the town meeting approves, an ordinance gets a recommendation from the planning board and the select board. The town meeting either approves or disapproves the ordinance. Then that becomes quote-unquote law.
sure, okay. So what I'm circling back
But
to,
for,
Oh.
under warrant articles, those are, could be money, could be, things like, what date shall we set the tax bills due and
Sure.
things like that. Those are warrant articles. Those flow through, the warrant article is developed by the select board. Gets a recommendation from the select board. If it's a money item, then it gets a recommendation or non-recommendation from the budget committee. It then goes to the town meeting, and that is the final approval on it.
Right. So thank you for clarifying. So circling back, right, to what Peter had said earlier and the question I had asked with respect to the comprehensive plan. So if the planning board, right, is writing the land use ordinances, and they should be based on the comprehensive plan, and when they aren't, that causes a problem for the town for legal reasons if it ends up going to court. So I guess, in that instance, and particularly in our solar instance, right? Like the ordinance that went through was not in compliance with the comprehensive plan. And that's why some of us were all caught off guard by it, right? And then we were told, well, it doesn't go by the comprehensive plan, it goes by the ordinance, but they were in conflict with each other. So moving forward, it sounds like a lot of awareness has come to fruition on a variety of issues from a variety of committees or public citizens or whatever. And as a result, it looks like that you guys are going to do more of a cooperative, sort of transparent approach to make sure that things are in line with each other, so that when the planning board is proposing an ordinance, they are going to the comprehensive plan to make sure that they're in compliance with that, right? So that there's no direct conflict, because presumably the citizens had already voted on that. So by them putting an ordinance forward that's in direct opposition to that, the average lay person, right, the average citizen, like when I'm going to the polls, I'm not going to know that, like, oh, okay, well, the planning board did this, but it's in conflict with the comprehensive plan, so I should vote this down, right? Like, there is nobody.
I think what happened in that situation was the 2004 comprehensive plan set some things in motion and how they wanted to go, but the state and the powers that be, the governors and whoever was going through, and solar wasn't a thing then,
right,
came
sure.
through. So then they kind of, it was more, not even really a gray area, but it was like a new and upcoming thing where they were trying to put it in different spots where a true commercial avenue wouldn't normally go, but this was solar, so they were giving it latitude, sure, shoving that in there, and you couldn't really say, it was definitely a gray area because it was commercial, but yet it was given this special treatment, basically,
sure,
to get into that. And since 2004, there wasn't any solar farms or anything going on then, that's where it kind of snuck in, I believe. I wasn't around for that part of it. But.
Right.
Keep in mind also, interpretations.
Well, so I was going to.
So you've got, you have a comprehensive plan, which is essentially, goals, designs, and things like that. There's interpretations done by the planning board when they're doing the ordinance. The ordinances are also reviewed by legal.
Right.
And then, so one does feed to the other, but it's like every, you take green, and that can be interpreted as, is it Kelly green or is it emerald green?
Sure. Right.
So green is not necessarily green. So it, some depends on how they interpret it, and that's part of their job, is is doing interpretations and writing ordinances based on those interpretations. But as I say, at the end of the day, the town does have the final vote on an ordinance. The only thing they cannot do is at town meeting make a change to an ordinance. All they can do is either say yay or nay.
Correct.
Because if they make any change to it, then it can ripple through and do all kinds of things that you didn't intend for it to do. So that's why, the only action that you can take there is either say yay or nay.
Correct. I understand that. So then I guess, too, when you say, or it's subject to interpretation and ordinance are reviewed by legal, and I think I touched on this at another meeting, is just the education of the average layperson on what you're actually saying in your ordinance. And I think I think Dennis brought it up last time that, like, could you do a little blurb in plain language that says, because And I didn't even know this, Sue educated me, that like, well, once you're in the voting booth, if you don't understand something, you can ask for a copy of it, right? But most people who are in the booth don't know to ask for a copy of it. They think once they're in there, they do that. And I think also to even read the warrant, like I did zoom into those 2 meetings when you guys were doing that. And I'm, again, I have a master's degree in tax law, so I know a little bit of law to be dangerous. And I need an attorney to understand what I'm voting on, so I think there needs to be a little bit of that if we're gonna say, well, it's subject to this interpretation or that interpretation because, whose interpretation is it? Like my interpretation when I read the law might be different than what somebody else's interpretation is. And so I think it would be helpful just to, but it sounds like you're moving in that direction. Thank you for taking this time to educate me. I am grateful to the process because it got me, you guys did such a great job for so many years. I didn't have to do anything, right? Like I just had to show up and check boxes because you keep Raymond running beautifully. And this was just an anomaly, but I'm grateful to it because I'm learning about my municipal government, and I'm grateful to all of you for serving, and to Comprehensive Plan and Budget Finance because you're all volunteers. Thank you for giving your time and for giving us a voice and for keeping our town beautiful. I appreciate it, and thank you.
Yeah, and just real quick, just a practical example of how, we probably all remember a civics class where it's, how a bill becomes a law. But what I will tell you is that here's a practical example. I went to in reviewing what the housing situation was in the town of Raymond, I determined that what we had already as an ordinance was that an accessory dwelling unit would be 700 square feet. And I thought myself personally, that's a little too small. And so what I did is in January, I approached the code enforcement officer. And because the code enforcement officer will take to the planning board any citizen requests for ordinances. And then the code enforcement officer then brings that to the planning board early in the year for them to consider. And basically, the code enforcement officer will make recommendations on existing ordinances or new ordinances, and some of them are based on feedback from the public. Not the entire public understands that, and I did know that. So I went to the code enforcement officer and I said, 700 square feet really isn't enough. How about 1,250? I researched it. There's many communities around that basically have established an accessory dwelling unit to be 1,250 square feet. That's large enough for a couple, either starting out or a retired couple to go into. And so he thought that was a reasonable request. Even if he didn't think it was a reasonable request, he was kind of compelled because a citizen of the town was bringing it to him. He brought it to the planning board. The planning board had a discussion when they were reviewing all of the proposed ordinances that would go to the select board for approval. On the warrant. The planning board accepted the code enforcement officer's recommendation of increasing the square footage based on my request as a private citizen, brought it to the select board. The select board approved it. It went on the warrant. It went on the ballot, and it got approved. So that's a situation where an individual can basically bring a proposed warrant. And I would say you can do it yourself and approach the committee, but I believe that with the planning board, the process was, the code enforcement officer would bring it to him. So you just seek out the code enforcement officer. Hope that helps.
That's going to be known as the Peter warrant. Peter ordinance, yes.
Okay.
I have some comments. I'm curious how the agenda, how things get brought up from our comments, select board comments at the end of a meeting. I thought they were relative to what happened that night, not relative to what happened 2 weeks ago or a month ago.
You mean on my stuff?
Yeah, I'm asking him how we get this stuff on the agenda.
Public comment and selectman comment are generally things that were not on the agenda.
Oh, okay. So if I have a concern, I can bring it in under my comments anytime at the public meetings, like Teresa did?
At the selectman comment, yes. you
Oh,
can.
okay.
From a typical standpoint, when it's selectman comment or public comment, we don't respond to it. We're it's listening, and it's not, we kind of went off the tracks a little bit and got a little more interactive here, and, that's kind of our, a little bit of our prerogative to be able to do there. But in general, the public comment is things that were not on the agenda. Because during an agenda item, the public can speak to that agenda item. So it's maybe a concern or whatever that they have that they could bring up at that point, which is why typically they're not responded to, because we're it's listening to see what is it, what are they saying. That may drive something to come up on a future agenda or whatever.
So what's the difference of new business and selectman comment?
Because we don't have new business.
It's never,
Oh, we do.
No.
yeah.
We have new business.
Well, new business are things that are on the agenda. The agenda is developed, and if people want to add something to an agenda, there's from the public or whatever, there's a form online that they can do to request something be put on the agenda. If there's if a select board member wants something put on the agenda, then get it to me, to Sue, and then we finalize the agenda just before it gets sent out to us all.
An example would be like with the library, when I wanted them to come underneath the town. I asked it to be on there so it could be a big talk between everybody. This thing here, in all honesty, has never been this long as far as selectmen, but I think that there's things that needed to be clarified with the budget finance and the select board, so they know what they can.
No, it's pretty extensive. I mean,
Yes, and it's
a
never
review of the
been.
whole meeting.
And so, but you
So
can.
something I can't find, though, I'd heard that we can go back to 2001, and the reason I raised this question is I went through, before I became a selectman, and I did a ton of research over the 3 years I was on the budget committee. I can't find where the selectmen actually voted the 1% increase in for the pension contribution, but I can find out where the bylaws, the policy change was done in June to allow for it. But I couldn't find the vote. So I'm sure it's got to be there.
Oh, it's there.
So
We did-
would I go through Sue for that, or do I?
No,
How do I? Because I can't find it.
Because it was supposed to have been, it was communicated to the finance director at that time to include that in the budget.
But we didn't
It
vote
was
on it.
assumed, well, we voted the budget, it was assumed that it was in there because we asked her to put it in there.
There wasn't a separate vote for that particular item.
Yes.
But doesn't it take a vote? As we said, financial
The
things
budget
take a
was
If
vote.
it does, yeah, and what happens is we'd asked for it to be in there, so when it got presented, we believed that it was in there. And so when we voted the budget, by virtue of that, we approved that.
Even though it wasn't in there, because you thought it was therefore a legal
Right,
vote.
because she was supposed to put it in, it didn't get put in. And so so then once we found out that she,
It was
then we
after.
had at the next meeting, we addressed that and we put it in.
No, it was June. It was the June when you decided to deal with it. But I was waiting for the vote, and what I heard was it was a vote to change the policy to allow it, to change the policy to reflect it. But I didn't hear the vote. So that's why I was asking. If it was somewhere else, I'd like to have seen it.
Each year, we have to do that. We have to vote
Well,
that. in the
let me
policy.
just ask, on record here, I'd like to know if Sue could have someone find it so I could see the actual vote, not the policy change that allows, people to have
As
it.
Rolf said, there was not a vote on that article. There wasn't a vote for that. The finance director was instructed by the select board to add that 1%. There wasn't a vote. It was an instruction to the finance director.
And then when we found out that it was not, then at the next select board meeting, we approved that increase.
And by voting the policy change,
Yes.
that
From 6 to 7.
increased the percentages.
Oh,
That
I
was,
thought it was a written thing on the policy that had to reflect that. I didn't realize it was actually a vote. Okay, that explains it. Thank you.
Okay, town manager's report.
And we've got the two upcoming dates, August 13th and September 10th, if that's, well, August 13th is kind of set in stone now since we have a special town meeting going, but is September 10th okay with everyone?
And 13th is now 6 PM,
Yes.
6
it is
p.m.,
6
right.
p.m.
just so everyone knows.
Oh, I've got to change my planner.
I'm good on those now, but
And then we've also got, what's the date on the,
And there is an upcoming training
Yep.
for
did you get the date?
committees. It is the 23rd, though at this point in time, I don't have a videographer for that.
Well, you would only need the videographer for the beginning part of it, and then the rest of it will be an executive session.
Right.
23rd
Of
Yes.
June.
at what
That's
time?
when,
no.
July.
July.
of
Oh.
July.
Oh, way better.
All right.
Sorry.
You're gonna send something out in that.
And what time is that one?
That
We'll
is,
send a reminder out there.
it was
There was one that was
5:30, but
sent
it
out,
should
but we'll send a
probably be 6
reminder out.
o'clock. I haven't sent it out as yet. That should be 6 o'clock as well, Ralph?
Yes.
Okay.
So that may make it easier for the
Yeah.
videographer.
Yes,
side.
and that could be the issue. Mhm.
What time, September 30th?
6.
Both at 6.
And everybody's good on September 10th? Take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor? Meeting is adjourned.